China is pledging to take countermeasures in response to a $2 billion US arms package to Taiwan, condemning the move as a threat to its sovereignty and territorial integrity. Joining me is Australian Strategic Policy Institute Senior Analyst Malcolm Davis. Malcolm, good to see you again. So what does this $2 billion arms package to Taiwan include?
Well, the most significant aspect of the package is what's known as NASAMS, or National Advanced Surface-to-Air Missile System. Australia operate these. Essentially, it's a short to medium-range air defence missile capability that will assist Taiwan in its ability to counter Chinese air and missile attacks. Associated with that system is advanced radar technology that will basically be the eyes and ears of those missiles. And there's various different other things in the package, but it's mainly the NASAMS missiles that are the key component.
OK, so China is obviously very upset about this. Has the communist country indicated how it will respond, and how is it likely to respond?
Oh, look, it's likely to do more of the same. I think, in the recent days and weeks, we've seen the Chinese do supposed exercises around Taiwan, which in actual fact are rehearsals for a naval blockade, which under international law would be an act of war. Obviously, China continues to claim that Taiwan is part of its territory. The vast majority of Taiwanese do not seek unification with China. They seek the current status quo, and that's unacceptable to China. So it's highly likely that China will try to increase pressure through coercion by doing these sorts of blockade exercises on an ongoing basis, ramping them up in a way that it becomes then difficult for the United States and Australia and others to determine at what point does an exercise turn into a real operational blockade, as I said, which would be an act of war.
If Donald Trump wins a second stint in the White House, we know he's isolationist. How likely would Trump come to the rescue of Taiwan? And if President Xi firmly believes Trump doesn't want a war with China over Taiwan, would that embolden the Chinese president to invade?
Look, I think it's hard to say. When you look at the people around Trump in his likely second term, they are all China hawks. They regard China as the peer threat, the pacing threat to the United States. So it's quite likely that the people around Donald Trump would say, we must protect US interests in the Indo-Pacific region, and that would include defending Taiwan. Having said that, as you say, Trump is more isolationist. He's more transactional. It's possible that Xi Jinping could think that Trump might be enticed by a deal, for example, that would essentially throw Taiwan under a bus. So I think that it's really hard to say at this point how Trump would respond to a Taiwan scenario, as opposed to, say, a scenario in Europe with NATO, where it's very clear that Trump is not interested in supporting NATO.
And if China hypothetically does invade Taiwan and Donald Trump does not respond and doesn't go to war with China, where does that leave Australia? What do we do?
Well, if that happens, if the US does not intervene to defend Taiwan against China's determination to impose unification through military force against the wishes of the Taiwanese people, and China succeeds in imposing that unification, then I think China would be emboldened to essentially create a Chinese sphere of influence in the Indo-Pacific. It would impose its will on other nations in the region, particularly those in ASEAN and the Southwest Pacific. And I think it would try to impose its will on us. And if the US basically has turned its back on a key ally and partner such as Taiwan, it would also create real concerns in Japan and South Korea that could see them get nuclear weapons. And what that would mean is that Australia would be far more exposed to Chinese pressure. In a Chinese-dominated Indo-Pacific region, we would need to suddenly think about how we develop our own independent defensive capabilities. I'm not suggesting for a moment that Australia would get its own nuclear weapons, but certainly we would need to dramatically increase defence spending to ensure that our security interests are protected.
Malcolm Davis, appreciate your time. Thank you.